Death Valley, despite its dark name, is a fantastic place to explore. You will see landscapes known from Star Wars and Robinson Crusoe, see wandering stones and play golf with the devil there. Find out more about Death Valley. One of the driest places on Earth is located in Southern California, a state known for its lush green citrus orchards and vineyards. This is the famous Death Valley. Summer temperatures reach 50 degrees Celsius and rain falls extremely rarely. On July 10, 2021 at the Furnace Creek Visitor Center, the record temperature of 54.44 degrees Celsius was recorded. A higher temperature in the world has not yet been measured. Although some sources say that in 1913 the temperature in Death Valley was 56.7 degrees Celsius, but this was not recognized because the measurement was not made according to proper standards. Because the temperatures reach close to 100 degrees Celsius, you can fry scrambled eggs on the hot sand and rocks. Humidity is mostly minimal, with an average of 1%. The location of the valley is largely responsible for this dry and hot climate. It is a drainless valley depression in the Mojave Desert whose lowest point is 86 meters below sea level. It is the largest valley depression in North America. This large and dry valley depression formed relatively recently, in the Tertiary, in what is known as a rift or tectonic trench. The valley is surrounded by the high mountain ranges of the Panamint Range and Amargosa Range, which effectively stop rainfall. Today, most of the valley is national park land. The valley is about 225 kilometers long, and its width varies from 8 to 25 kilometers. Despite its grim name, Death Valley will quickly captivate you. The fantastic landscapes shaped by millions of years of history are stunning. Mountains, salt pans, salt lakes, sand dunes, and colorful rocks create seductive scenes. You must know that some of the rocks found here are up to 2 billion years old. Throughout the time, from the Precambrian to the present day, various geological processes have formed today's valley. However, today's image was largely formed in the Oligocene and Miocene. The valley was humid, fertile grasslands supported rich fauna, headed by mastodonts. Their fossils can be found in many parts of the desert. Volcanoes that yielded thick layers of tuff erupted. About 10 million years ago, the landscape began to resemble today's, although in many valleys the water formed massive lakes, including the Death Valley. At the end of the Ice Age, or about 20,000 years ago, the lake began to slowly dry up. The remnants are today's salt pans and salt lakes that often dry up. Rivers appear only periodically. Despite these unfavorable conditions, life is thriving in the Death Valley. Quite a number of plants that have perfectly adapted to the desert conditions live here. The fauna is also quite rich. Although seeing a prairie coyote, a mule deer, or a puma will be rather difficult, you will definitely spot birds as there are about 300 different species of them here. Also watch out for scorpions and snakes that can hide quite well, for example, in the shade of plants. You don't have to take notes. We have included all the practical info in the description below the video. That's where you can also find links with accommodation, tickets to attractions and tips on how to pay abroad so as not to overpay on currency conversions. Have you wondered why this mid-mountain desert was called the Death Valley? You will probably connect it with the almost hellish conditions there. But that is not entirely true. People have long been intrigued by this unusual area. Traces of the first humans date back to about 7,000 years ago. Later, various nomadic tribes lived here, including Mesquite Flat, Saratoga Springs, and eventually the Shoshone. The latter called the area the Burning Ground. This name fits perfectly because the rocks here can be really hot. Gold was discovered in California in the mid-19th century. Thousands of people, eager to get rich, began to trek toward the gold-bearing fields. Some of the wanderers reached a deserted, inhospitable, and extremely hot valley along the way. For more than 2 months they searched for a way out, and there were still high and difficult mountains on the way to their dream gold. Unfortunately, some died of hunger and exhaustion. It was then that the inhospitable place was named the Death Valley. It became apparent fairly quickly that the valley offered great riches. Not only gold, but also silver, copper, zinc, lead, tungsten, and many others were discovered here, as were large deposits of borax, used, among other things, in the production of soap. The valley began to come to life, electricity was brought here, numerous mines and towns were established, the remains of which can still be seen today. Scientists also took an interest in the valley. It turned out to be a unique place. In 1933, it was decided that it would be a natural monument, and in 1994, Death Valley National Park was established. Most tourists come to Death Valley from Las Vegas side. To start, head to Dante's View. From this observation deck, you'll have an amazing view of the southern part of the valley. When you look at this wilderness, you will understand its name. Admittedly, Dante didn't know about the existence of the valley or even America, but this is what the hell he described might have looked like. If you get good weather, Dante's View will show you the highest and lowest point in the US outside of Alaska. Mount Whitney and Badwater are over 4,000 meters high and 86 meters below sea level. You can climb to the top of the mountain from the terrace. Although the walk is short, high temperatures make it a real challenge. If you are a fan of Star Wars, the views here will seem familiar to you. Rightly so, because scenes from Episode 4, A New Hope were filmed here. Zabriskie Point is another place you must see. Here you will also see incredible panoramas. Add numerous rock formations formed by eroding rocks and numerous hidden gorges with unusual colors and shapes to that. There are prepared trails that will take you deep into these wonders, but it's best to go with a park guide. It is really easy to get lost, and this can end tragically. Also, don't count on your phone or navigation because they mostly don't work here. Zabriskie Point also starred in a film. It was immortalized by Michelangelo Antonioni in the Zabriskie Point film. It was also used in Robinson Crusoe on Mars and Dog Soldiers movies. The U2 band put a photo of this place on the cover of their album, The Joshua Tree. Badwater is also a must-see in the valley. This is where the lowest place in the Death Valley and in North America is located. Until a few thousand years ago, it was a salt lake. Today you will see a white, dried salt crust from which the sun is strongly reflected. It is extremely hot here, even in the morning. After rainfall, a small lake does appear, but it dries up quite quickly. Nevertheless, endemic creatures live there. A special terrace and descent make it easy to get down to the surface of the former lake. Walking at least a dozen meters on the crackling salt sheet is a unique experience. You just have to be careful not to cut yourself on the sharp edges of the salt lumps. Can you play golf in the Death Valley? Try to do it on the Devil's Golf Course. According to an old guidebook, only the devil can play golf on this surface. In reality, this Devil's Game course is a salt pan. The entire surface is strewn with sizable lumps of salt and soil, which are usually shaped like cones. Their edges are extremely sharp. The entire area also lies in a depression at a depth of 83 meters below sea level. A narrow, winding road leads to this place, yet it is really worth taking it because the artist's palette will amaze anyone. As a result of the oxidation of various chemical compounds, the surrounding rocks have taken on amazing colors. Red, purple, green, blue, yellow, and pink are just some of the colors. The colors further change depending on the time of the day. Since the Death Valley is perhaps the most diverse in the world, there is no shortage of sand here. You've mostly seen stone and gravel desert, so now it's time to see massive and beautiful mesquite sand dunes. If you look closely, you can see how the sand is moved by gentle gusts of wind. Real sandstorms also happen here. This place also always looks great in photos. If there is a desert, there must also be oases. One of the most beautiful is the Furnace Creek, lying 58 meters below sea level. There is an efficient spring here that flows over 2,000 liters of water per minute. The Timbisha Shoshone Indians lived here for centuries. Today their descendants live in the reserve in the Death Valley. Later, it housed a borax mining center. Today, there is a small town here that houses the park's headquarters, museum, and information center. This green island is a pleasant change from the harsh desert landscape. There are also numerous campsites for tourists here. You can also visit Racetrack Playa, where you will be able to see the unusual phenomenon of wandering stones. Until recently, scientists could not explain how the large stones actually move. The explanation turned out to be quite simple, and aliens were not involved. After all, not far from the Death Valley is the famous Area 51. After rainstorms and a drop in temperature, a layer of ice forms on the mud, over which the wind moves the boulders. And the winds here are sometimes very strong. Death Valley has a volcanic past, which is visible when driving through the valley. From time to time, you will come across distinctive cones. If you like challenges and volcanoes, then you must see Ubehebe crater. It is about 1 kilometer in diameter and 230 meters deep. You can go inside it, although it's not an easy hike because you'll be wading through rocky debris. The last eruption of this volcano was about 2,000 years ago, so quite recently. Visiting the Death Valley can be quite enjoyable, however, you need to prepare well for it and remember a few important things. Usually, the valley is explored by car. Before entering the desert area, you need to check the amount of fuel and preferably fill it all the way up. There are 3 gas stations in the park, but you have to be prepared for much higher prices. If you plan to spend a few days in the Death Valley, you can stay in any of the hotels or campsites. However, the prices are quite high. A good option is to look for a cheaper hotel outside the valley area, and there are quite a few of them not too far away. Be sure to take enough water to drink. It's really hot here, and water will disappear quickly. To replenish the salt lost through sweat, salty snacks will come in handy. It is mandatory for you to have a head cover and sunglasses. Many people here get overheated, dehydrated, and even suffer sunstroke. Unfortunately, some of these cases have ended tragically. Remember that in the Death Valley area, your phone may be completely useless. In many places, there is no signal, so it is good to have a paper map. There is a fee to enter the national park. It is best to purchase an annual pass for $80, which allows to enter all national parks. If you don't like the heat, then do not come here in the summer. It's really hot here during this time. A better time is spring or autumn, although even in October it can be quite hot. On a sunny day, the temperature in many places reaches well over 40 degrees. The best time to go to the Death Valley is in the winter. Even in January, it is warm here during the day, although in the evening, it is good to have something warmer to wear because the temperature drops significantly. Although it should be remembered that rains here are very rare, they can be really dangerous. However, if you decide to do more extreme sightseeing in the summer, be sure to start longer hikes early in the morning. Then you have a chance to get back to your car before the heat wave. If you're already planning your trip, you can find accommodation and tickets to attractions on the spot in the links under the video description. You can also order a card for cheap payments abroad the same way. Press the bell and subscribe to our channel if you want to receive notifications about new episodes. Have a nice trip.